Good afternoon. The Committee on General Government Operations and Appropriations is now called to order. Today is Thursday, May 18th. The time now is 2:01. In compliance with the Open Government Law, the notice for this public hearing were posted on Gov Guam Public Notice Portal, KGTF, PBS Channel 12, and disseminated via email to all senators and all main media broadcasting outlets on Wednesday, May 3rd and Thursday, May 11th. This hearing is in reference to the budget of the Department of Agriculture. Reference to Bill number 26-37 COR, Committee on Rules by the request of I Magaʹhågan Guåhan, the Governor of Guam, in accordance with the Organic Act of Guam, an act making appropriation for the operation of the executive branch of the Government of Guam for fiscal year ending September 30th, 2024, making other appropriations and establishing miscellaneous administrative provisions. At this time, I ask the members of the panel from the Department of Agriculture to please rise while you will be sworn in by the Sergeant.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you all affirm that any and all information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Mr. Chair, under oath, you may proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant. General rules for the budget hearing. Please provide my legislative staff with any document for photocopying and distribution. Panel members are asked to remain in the room for questions or for additional testimonies may be desired by members of the committee. Questions and testimonies shall be confined to the substance or nature of the agenda, which is the budget of the Department of Agriculture. Personal inference as to the character or motive of any senator or any individual testifying is not permitted. Any violation of this general rule of conduct will result in removal from the budget hearing. So let's be all nice to each other, okay? Proper form and decorum shall be practiced by all present in the public hearing room for these proceedings. Individuals who fail to maintain proper form and decorum will be restricted from participating and will be escorted from the room. When you speak, please make sure that the microphone is on and that you speak into the microphone. Please state your name and your title for the record. I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues that have joined me this afternoon. I have Vice Speaker Tina Rose Mooney Barnes and my committee member, Senator Joanne Brown. I'd like to also recognize the panel that are here today, and we have the Director, Chelsea Muña, and we have the Deputy Director, Roy Gamboa, and if I'm correct, Antonia Santos. Yep. Ay, loki amko matsugwenna gizago, but that's okay. It'll be okay, right? With that, I ask the Director to give her opening and present your budget, and we'll work from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator San Agustin, Vice Speaker Muña Barnes, and Senator Brown. I'm grateful and thankful that you're always present and ready to participate with the Department of Agriculture's budget. And I'd like to thank my colleagues who are with me today and have spent the past several days working on this budget presentation with me. And I believe you have copies of our handouts in front of you. So I will go right into the PowerPoint presentation. If we could have the slides brought up, please, and next slide. Starting with the Department of Agriculture's organizational chart, I would like to point out to the committee some changes that we're making to the organization of the structure for the Department of Agriculture. The law enforcement section has been made a division upon itself, and we've added an aquaculture division that will be in alignment with the projects that we have undertaken in support of the administration's efforts to increase aquaculture on Guam. While that has been a priority for the governor, it has also been a priority for our agency in that it provides us with an opportunity for ecosystem restoration, habitat restoration and protection, as well as economic development for our farmers and those who would engage in aquaculture industry for themselves that are separate from farming and agriculture. Next slide. We begin with the Agriculture Development Services Division. With staffing and services, the positions on the left account for the staff of the section. It hasn't changed very much, actually it hasn't changed at all since last fiscal year. The pictures that you'll see to your right reflect the micro grants for food security program requests for applications for this fiscal year. And our May Harvest event, which will be coming up on May 26th, and you're all invited to attend. It'll be at the Farmers Cooperative Association of Guam up in Dedido from 10 to 2 p.m. Services provided by the section have been the mainstays of that section with farm inspections, bona fide certifications, projects such as the Micro Grant for Food Security Program, the Specialty Crop Block Grant Program, and the plant nursery, which has been expanding tremendously in the amount of varieties of crops that are available to the community for purchase, as well as our technical and training programs. Next slide. For this fiscal year, the general fund will appropriate, based on our budget call, $874,790 for salaries and benefits for the staff that you saw on the previous page, as well as $81,674 for operations. That was the increase that's reflected from last fiscal year is accounting for a vehicle that we would like to purchase for that section. The section conducts frequent inspections to farms for people who are first-time farmers applying for the bona fide certification, or those who have issues that they'd like to see our staff come out and address with technical assistance. So we do frequently go out to conduct farm inspections, and at this time, staff rely on their own personal vehicles to perform those services or provide those services. The only special fund that we have is the Plant Nursery Revolving Fund, which takes in sales from our plant nursery. Those sales are reflected on the right. I think this is the first time that these numbers have ever been provided, where you can see the number of vegetables, fruit trees, and also flat trays that are sold to the community from the beginning of the fiscal year till this month. The top chart is the number of items that were sold. The second chart is the amount that was accumulated from those sales. And then the third chart is the number of bona fide farmers we have registered with our agency. I would like to point out that with our micro grant for food distribution program, we have distributed over or close to $400,000 to 42 farmers, new farmers, existing farmers, and new home gardeners. It's been an amazing, successful program where we allow applicants to describe a project that they'd like to have funded, and the micro grant provides up to $5,000 for a one-year project. We also, through some of our grant programs, have provided $334,000 to the Farmers Cooperative Association of Guam, and $136,000 to, broken apart into $34,000 each, to different farm advocacy groups that are participating with us in the Farmer Rancher Mental Health Stress Project. We also have established new relationships through organizations with visits to the SPC, which is the South Pacific Consortium. I attended the Heads of Agriculture and Forestry, summit. It was a summit, and it was extremely enlightening and just a complete eye-opener to the opportunities that are available internationally and working with our Pacific brethren. To date, for this fiscal year, the ADS section has 12 grants totaling $2.4 million, which is a $900,000 increase over last fiscal year. Next slide. One of our favorites, the animal health section. We have 6 animal control officers, 1 territorial veterinarian, our clerk typist, administrative aide, and we are in the progress of recruiting for an animal control supervisor. This is a section where I would emphasize that second area right there that illustrates what we would like to see as an opportunity for positions if the budget would allow for it, to increase our animal control officers by at least 3 and 1 program coordinator for the section. I think the pictures on the right can completely tell the story of why additional staff are needed, especially a program coordinator to assist the territorial veterinarian. This section provides for animal entry permits, export health certificates, animal cruelty investigations, stray animal seizures, the spay-neuter program, and euthanasia. All of our animal control officers have been undergoing training from the territorial veterinarian and euthanasia procedures. She's also been providing that same training to GAIN volunteers and staff. They conduct pet facility sanitary inspections and conduct extensive outreach and education. I wanted to point out that the pictures to the right reflect the national certification that our animal control officers have received. It's the first time in the agency's history that animal control officers have received a nationally certified credential for animal control. They participate fully in the SNP program as volunteers when they do that in their off time. On the right, you'll see the SNP program pictures in action where we have high quality, high volume spaying and neutering taking place. They've started an extensive outreach campaign where they have materials that they've been circulating through social media and also during their village visits that provide information to the community about little things that they should know for responsible animal ownership. And then they conducted outreach at a school as well, where they teach the elementary school kids about responsible pet ownership. Next slide. The animal health section is funded for fiscal year 24 at $606,547, and that's to cover all of the salaries and benefits for the staff. At the bottom, you can see the statistics and the details of the services that they've been providing. So thus far for 2023, I want to point this out specifically. They have processed 557 entry permits, 529 of which were for dogs. The export permits, on the other hand, are 264. So it's a mere fraction of the entry permits that demonstrate the number of dogs coming into Guam versus the number of dogs actually leaving Guam. And above that, you'll see that in 2026, the intake, adoption, and euthanization numbers. And below that, you'll see for 2023, GAIN has taken in 1,309 pets and euthanized over 1,200. So we're doing as much as we can, as quickly as we can to address the overpopulation and stray situation. Below, I also want to point out, because this is a substantial issue right here, for complaints filed, each of those numbers reflect January, February, March, and April. We had 131 complaints filed in January, 107 in February, 121 for March and April respectively. But you'll see that we've only been able to address at the highest point about 37% of them, and then at the lowest point I believe that's about 18% of them. And that's because right now we have 6 officers operating with 1 truck. And our officers, though, have also issued 11 citations, which I'm quite proud of, because given about 2 years ago, there were never citations issued at all. So they take every opportunity to educate the community first, and then if the community or resident is non-responsive, then they issue a citation. And sometimes the situation is just so egregious that they issue a citation right off the bat. Okay, our biosecurity division, next slide, please. The staffing has not changed with our biosecurity division very much, except that we lost our invasive species coordinator, so we are in active recruitment for that position. The position was announced and has already closed out with Department of Administration, as well as the agriculturalist 3, which is the former position occupied by the current entomologist. These are really cool pictures of, I'm hoping, can you click on the video to the right, on the top right of the screen? Yes. These are Guam's first animal detection dogs that are trained to detect coconut rhinoceros beetle. It's the first time it's ever been done. It's a really impressive program, and they were able to demonstrate that if a beetle flies into a container and is in there for only 5 minutes, the dog can detect that one beetle at about 12 feet in height. So can you click on the one with the kids, please? Because that's a lot more fun and if we have audio. So this was at Charter Day, and the kids got to witness the detector dog in action.
My apologies. Ms. Brecht, is the video able to be like zoomed in or like?
Oh, sure, they can stretch
AV,
it.
can you stretch that?
Okay. So this project was a DOI-funded project, and it's funded through 2024. However, if we are not able to secure funding, the program will go away. It's unfunded. Next slide, please. Oh, there. Okay. Right now, with the biosecurity section, there are over $1.6 million in federally funded projects. The section receives funding from the Guam Invasive Species Fund, which is $654,000 for this coming fiscal year, and $94,000 for the plant inspection permit fund. I will point out, though, that the plant inspection permit fund, although those are a special fund that accumulates money for the section, that's primarily used to pay for utilities and operations like the Xerox copier, and it's been the same every year. I mean, it hasn't changed. It's the same thing I report out to you guys each year what that fund is used for. And although the legislature approved an adjustment to the invasive species fund, we won't see the impact of that increase to the fund until the next fiscal year. Because the change was implemented this January. Okay, next slide, please. These are oh, wow, that's terrible and tiny. These are services provided by the biosecurity section in addition to like the detector dog program. There's the pest hotline, which for this year alone has taken in over 100 different calls. They've performed 80 different residential inspections and 8 at government facilities, including schools. They've inspected over 56 apiary farms, which is an increase from last year at 34. There have been close to 4,000 permits issued for plants and propagative materials, eggs, etc., and conducted close to or a little over 400 phytosanitary certificate inspections. Next slide, please. Our Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources. These are some really cool pictures here. There are roughly 8 staff members, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 8 staff who are partially locally funded and partially federally funded. The pictures you'll see on your right, I wanted to include because we hold a lot of outreach and community events. There's the Kids Fishing Derby, the Babwe Derby. We also hold a Banatu Derby. I wanted to include the pictures for the Babwe Derby because I wanted you to see that we have farmers or hunters come out and participate. They shoot the pigs, and then we return the pigs to the mayors so that they can distribute that meat to the community, to families in need. So we had people driving up, and there's a picture there of a guy who took a pig on a moped, and someone else who put it on the back of their car, and they drove home with that. And I forgot to include it here, but I will ask Mike Duenas to come up later and see if he can recall the amount of pounds of meat that was produced from just one derby that went out to feed the community and those in need. And there are also pictures on the PowerPoint that aren't on your printed presentation right now, I think, or they might be, actually they are. The shark depredation project that Dr. Biggs wrote a proposal for and was funded, where he took several local boat captains with them, and including Mr. Duenas, to Honolulu to receive training on shark tagging so that we can now start to tag and track the sharks that are predating on the catch of fishers. If you'll see at the bottom, that's a bunch of onaga where more than half the fish was taken by sharks. And that's a regular occurrence that plagues our local fishers. And you run into anyone you know who's fishing, and they will tell you, and they'll be happy to tell you how much fish they've lost to sharks. So although we've done a lot to conserve and protect sharks, there's an issue now impacting the local fishers where they're losing feed. They're losing food that they're trying to either catch for sale or for their families to the sharks. And they believe that the sharks are actually trained to hear the motors from the boats. So as soon as they hear that, they come. And they know they just hang around and they'll get fish. Next slide. Oh, sorry, go back, please. These are well, it's also on the next slide, but with the Kids Fishing Derby, you'll see the picture of the Maso Reservoir platform. That's one of the successful projects that has finally seen its completion, where the entire platform has been repaired and many of the parts replaced. Next slide. Sorry, can you go back one more, I think? Or was that it? No, okay, sorry, next slide, just kidding. Okay, here, I do have the numbers. So in our last pig derby, 45 pigs were caught with a total weight of 3,700 pounds or 1.85 tons. And so the percentage of usable meat from each pig is about 57%. And that yields about 2,115 pounds of usable meat or 1 ton of meat. So if an average person eats about a half pound of meat, that derby provided over 4,232 meals. So depending on your family and how much they eat, you know, that could have been a lot of meals or just a little. I know my family. So the salaries and federal funded positions for DAR, with the 8 positions that we talked about that are partially locally and federally funded, 330,000 of that is locally funded and 537,000 is federally funded. On the right, you'll see the data for the number of permits that we've issued and inspections that have been conducted, from clearing and grading to the ARC committee to construction permits. It's, I think, running, it's a more than half, and we're not even halfway through the year yet. So the numbers will likely increase or more than double by the end of the year, at least for clearing and grading and construction permits, which I kind of want to put that bug in your ear that we need to start figuring out exactly how much agriculture land we have left and how much is being rezoned for construction on Guam. And I'm sure that's going to be a project we'll be tasked with figuring out later, so just gave myself some extra work, but I wanted you to be aware of that. Next slide, please. So there's about 20 different positions in DAR that are 100% federally funded. There's 63 grants that are being managed through DAR right now at $11 million total for all of those grants. Let's see. Another success story we have, in addition to that Maso Reservoir platform, is the NABOCA grant that was written by Frank Roberto, one of our biologists at DAR. And it's a community-based project where he's working with youth, teens in Alahan and Maleso to outplant giant clams. And they're going to be in cages that have already been reviewed and passed the NEPA process, so they're not going to be damaging to the environment. And he's working to teach the community how to manage basically a clam aquaculture system with the hopes of restoring giant clams to Guam's waters. Next slide. Forestry section. We have our forestry chief here with us if you have any questions for Chief Christine Borja. But forestry's done a lot this year. Or, wait, did I say Borja? Borja. Sorry, Christine Farron. I'm tired. I was up till 2 doing these. And I'm on no coffee, just for the record. The first picture is a training, an arborist training. So what I love about our forestry section is that they do bring in trainers, or sometimes we've sent people off island, but it's not just limited to our agency. So that is a multi-agency training group that you can see up there, where we were providing training for them to achieve arborist certification, so that when you have agencies like DPW, GPA, the Mayor's Council, and even DPR, when they go out and cut trees, they're doing the right cut on the right tree for the right purpose. And on the right, or in the center, you'll see one of our people who have been certified, that's PJ San Nicolas, climbing and cutting a tree that, for the Manila Mayor that is adjacent right to Price Elementary School. And then you can also see the fires that our forestry aides had put out, and then we're conducting and exercising their skills in criminal investigation, as well as the, what did you call that? The fire danger rating signs. So for this year, forestry had over 1,500 volunteers plant 11,000 trees across 31 acres of our island at 17 different planting events, where they also collected over 3,000 seeds. They conducted 12 outreach events, and that's just to date, that are separate from those outplanting events. They've enrolled 2 different villages, Mangilaw and Aganya Heights, in the National Tree City USA project. I think they're both at schools, or at least I know the Tree City is also with Untalan Middle School, wasn't it? So it's 3 now? So it's 3. including Untalan, where the schools plant trees and then they participate in this national program. They fought 35 wildfires where 630 acres have burned. That's just for this year. And then next to that, you'll see other services that have provided. One of our additional asks have been to replace the administrative assistant position that Christine lost from her section. And we will always be happy to receive more forestry aides or foresters. But if you can look on the next slide, you'll see that she's worked really hard to earn all of those. So on the bottom half, those are the typical programs that forestry already participates in, that they receive funding for. They still have to compete for some of them, and they apply for, or they submit proposals. So right now, she has about $400,000 in their regular funded programs, like the Cooperative Fire Program, the Landscape Scale Restoration, that's a state and private forestry, wildland fire investigation, cooperative fire protection, et cetera. But in the last year, maybe a year and a half, we've worked together to bring in an additional $8.6 million to forestry. That's through REPI Challenge, America the Beautiful, the Joint Chiefs Inflation Reduction Act. We've also dedicated some of that funding to create a sort of forestry apprenticeship program so that we can start training and recruiting the new generation of forestry aides, and also to provide education opportunities to our current forestry aides where they'll be able to earn a stipend if they choose to participate and take additional classes that'll help them grow. Personal development. Okay, next slide, please. We're almost at the end. Just 20 more slides to go. Just kidding. No, almost. So we're almost there. We have our conservation law enforcement section. Everybody knows how hard they work every day and the work that they do. We're pending one general funded position and 4 LTA funded positions. Actually, the 4 LTAs were added. I'm sorry, these are what was added. The general fund and the LTAs. The LTAs came out of the ARP funding, and we had picked up one general fund recruit. We still have one general fund position that's in the process of recruitment. We're waiting on testing through DOA. Next slide, please. The budget for conservation officers this year is $715,000 for personnel, and then $59,000 for operations. The ARP funding that we've received has already completed the boat warehouse that needed to be restructured because they were keeping equipment and a lot of different items in there, and anyone could have walked by and just lifted the big warehouse sliding doors and walked in. So that building's been retrofitted and looks wonderful. We're working on getting their law enforcement office completed. It's been an uphill battle. I'm not gonna sugarcoat that. The first vendor that was accepted through DPW ended up withdrawing from the contract or the process, and we went to the second highest bidder, and that increased the funding or the budget for that project by $700,000. So it went from being roughly $800,000 to $1.5 million just to construct their simple structure law enforcement office. Next slide. So this is our summary. This is agriculture by the numbers. We have $4.3 million in local funds to include all of our special funds, and $24 million in federal funded projects, to see an increase of about $4 million in grants from last year, and 15% locally funded is where we stand right now, and 85% federally funded. But it's broken down there for you. And with that,
That's it?
that concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Before I ask my colleagues to ask any questions, I'd just like to commend you that you get $4 million and you bring in 24. Can we actually look forward that if you get the additional 800,000, we can look forward to seeing more, hopefully more money?
Absolutely. The only thing, honestly, that's even stopping us now is that we've maxed out at our staff and what they can handle. I feel guilty every time I see a new grant. I mean, we have our staff handling as many as they can. We're writing for grants. We're managing grants under our office. Christine is trying to keep it together because she lost her administrative assistant, and she's handling all of that with her two next under her in her office, and it's a lot.
Well, I just wanted to feel comfortable that you asked for 4, you bring in 24. If you ask for, gosh, not even 5, and if you bring in 30, then it's worth the cost.
Absolutely.
And that's what I want to feel comfortable with, so that everyone can understand that for every dollar spent, you're bringing in 3. Literally, you're bringing in, for every dollar we invest, there's $3 coming in the federal government, and it promotes everything that the Department of Agriculture needs to do. That's what I want to feel comfortable with.
Those are the positions that we want to help support that kind of growth. We're not in the mindset of, okay, let's slow down, we've got a lot to do. We want to do more. And so, but we recognize we need more human resources for more, to be able to accomplish more.
All right. I'm going to just ask my colleagues to go ahead and start, and then I'll finish it off. And just to advise you that your oversight chair happens to be off island,
Okay.
so we want to make sure we take care of his agency. Vice Speaker, and you'll be followed by Senator Brown. I'd like to also recognize that we're also joined by Senator Perez and Senator Canata.
Half a day, Senators.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Chair, and literally Chelsea to the team here. I want to congratulate you on a very, very good presentation. As you were going through the pages, Chelsea, I was looking at the unfunded positions that you really need, and you quoting that you literally feel guilty that once you get all these other additional grants that you turn around and you look at the same people doing the work, and it's how do we balance that out, and what can we do to give you the needed bodies, I think is what it needs, right? And at least for what can be ascertained by the federal grants, are there any GG1s pending at Department of Administration at this time that can be filled based on the encumbrances that are already here? And what is that?
Sorry, yes. We have about 7 GG1s at the Department of Administration right now in process of being filled. One of those is for an administrative officer to assist Ms. Antonia Santos. She used to have a team of 5 working under her, and now it's her running the entire agency with the exception of DAR. So yes, we need an administrative officer under her to help with all of that. There's a program coordinator position for the animal health section. Because like I said, Dr. Turner's coordinating a lot of these events herself. She's working to, on your page, you'll see that we applied for 2 different grants under animal health. One of them was a TAP grant, and one of them was an American the Beautiful. She's going to need assistance to help implement the projects under that, and those are primarily for stray animal removal. We are going to be taking over the temporary emergency food assistance program from DOE that comes with funding for the food, and that's it. There's no personnel, there's nothing for well, there's a small amount for operations, but that amount accounts for transporting the food from the port to wherever you're going to situate it at. And that's, it's a natural fit for the program. It's a USDA program to be under us, but it doesn't come with support. So all the positions that are either at DOA right now or what we've asked for, we've learned to operate on skin and bones, bare bones. So we don't ask for extra. We're not trying to be extravagant. We actually even minimize what we would like to see just so that we can be realistic in what we can be provided. We need extra bodies. I think we've been doing our team, this team is amazing, but we need more. We need more people.
Yeah, so if the GG1s are down there, maybe the next question is, what's the holdup to bringing, I know on one of the components you talked about the drug testing, right? That's what it's made for?
So there's testing, but it's for like our conservation officer testing. We have a conservation officer there. We also have an apprenticeship program that we're trying to establish under the conservation officers. I wouldn't even begin to try to like say that DOA isn't doing what they can. They're doing everything they can, but they've lost people too. I believe in their human resources section, they're down to 4 staff. That's 4 staff supporting over 50 government agencies for hiring and processing. So it's understandable. We'd like to try to find solutions that can help all of us.
So without the positions, would you lose any of the grants that are existing today? Maybe that's the
Yeah.
other question. That's what I want to look at. I want to make sure that we don't lose anything, and if the bodies are required, then we need to help facilitate it. And as Oversight Chair of Human Resources, if there is a missing link there, then let us know so that we can collaborate together, because if I had to compare the Department of Agriculture to others in the mainland, and knowing the budgets that they have are in the millions and millions of dollars versus what we're doing here for almost a lot of the same amount of work, and we've got a lot of federal grants. The chair was just saying, this is what it should look like, right? We give you 4, you bring back 24. We give you additional, you're going to bring back even more. But you also need that staff so you don't burn anyone else. You know, you don't burn them out, your employees out, right? Because they can only do so much too, right? You don't need
Yes.
any sick employees. So what can we do to make it a lot easier for you? And I appreciate that you understand that shortages of staff within the government of Guam as a whole, or at least with the Department of Administration, that you need these positions. And what is it going to take so that we don't lose any of the funding here?
It's been difficult recruiting. For the conservation recruits, they had over 30 applicants, 2 qualified. For picking up a Forester 2, we went through 1 certified list that was incomplete. And before we could even interview them, I think 3 out of the 4 people had already taken other jobs. We can't even recruit agricultural technicians, and that's a basic entry-level position with just some slight agricultural knowledge to fill federally funded LTA positions. We've had a commodity inspector position that's been announced for over a year, and that still has, I think, only 2 or 3 applicants. They have an incomplete list. So it's been hard recruiting all around. And then, you know, the challenges of getting it processed through DOA with their shortages makes it an even longer wait. So we have had grants that we've had to extend because we just don't have the staff to implement the projects. So there is a chance, a risk of loss, but for the fact that we're able to communicate with our grantors the challenges that we face and we can demonstrate that to them, then they're understanding about that.
Thank you, Chelsea. Mr. Chair, I think it's important to realize that this is a very critical agency, and as we look at the funding sources that they have, we need to be able to try and accommodate and facilitate getting that the bodies that are needed to run the programs. So my take to you, maybe I want to ask another one, is because the list is incomplete, and when the listing is being compiled, meaning there's not enough people out there who want to apply?
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yes.
So is
So a
there any
complete list-
enticements that
a
you can
complete-
ask the grants?
A complete list is 5, a
Right.
minimum of 5. For some of them, we've even asked just give us the incomplete list and we'll take that because it's 2 or 3 applicants.
Does that need legislation to do?
I don't know, because they're
There's
willing
always an
to,
notwithstanding.
if an agency asks for it, DOA will accommodate with providing the incomplete list, but they still will run the position while they're doing that.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chair, again, I appreciate the presentation done here today. I thought it was very thorough, complete, even admitting the shortages and what needs to be done. I'm one of those who really want to see what we can do to accommodate you. So if there's anything else, at least from the human resources perspective, as the oversight of that, please send your concerns my way, to our committee, and I'll see how we can help facilitate and work with the administration to get these positions filled. It's that important, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate you giving me the time this afternoon. I yield back to you. Thank you, guys. You guys are excellent.
Thank you, Madam Vice. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel, ma'am?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Certainly good afternoon to you, Chelsea, and your staff from Department of Agriculture. You had mentioned you had the federal funding for your drug detector dog program, and you're looking at another $259,000 you're going to need this fiscal year. Is it no longer federally funded, or what's the status of that?
No, so the funding will end in 2024. It was budgeted to, I think, complete at the end of the fiscal year. But I was talking with our entomologist, and also Dr. Glenn Dula had written this proposal, and they expect that it may not hit all the way to the end of the fiscal year, at the end of the fiscal year. And we just wanted to put this in here as a, sort of as a placeholder and in consideration for the legislature, because we do not know what the invasive species fund will look like come that time. Right now, we're facing a challenge with some of the, and it may come back to you guys, with some of the shipping companies, because they do not want to pay the fee on containers that are being transshipped, and that's over $100,000 worth of fees per company, that vessels that come into Guam's waters, but they do not offload the containers. But the way the law is written right now, it reads any cargo entering Guam. And in our interpretation, once you cross that 3-mile line, you've entered Guam. And there's no question about that. And then that container has the potential for transmitting invasive species to the island. They're arguing that it's not being offloaded, so they shouldn't have to pay the fee. So we may end up having to go to the Attorney General on that. And at that point, some of them, and I just found out from the entomologist today that some of them are not paying into the invasive species fund. So we're going to address that as it applies to the cargo that is offloaded, but we don't know what kind of fight we're heading into, and whether or not some of them.
How long has that been going on? Because I mean, these fees should. I can understand the dispute, but in the interim, that doesn't mean we don't pay because we don't agree.
I agree, and that's exactly what I said
this
to him today.
invasive species fee has been in place for quite a number of years. How long has this issue existed that they've not been paying?
Just since the beginning of this year.
Were they paying it last year?
Yes.
There's not that many ships coming into Guam or companies coming into Guam.
It's 5 companies.
So who is addressing the lead on this to look for resolution?
We are, and I had that
Okay.
conversation with him today.
And if they're able to pay into this, will you have adequate funds? Because I certainly would hate to see all the time and effort that has gone into place to put these, these detector dogs here.
Absolutely.
And also for their trainers, and the maintenance of these animals, and then, all of a sudden there's no money and then everything's left to nowhere. And I don't think that's where we want. I actually want to see this strengthen, because then this will help our issue of, reducing our concerns with regards to the rhino beetle. Are you anticipating looking at the amounts that would be paid? Would that cover your
Yes,
needs
we are
for your program?
anticipating that. And that's the exact conversation we had with him today, that there's no excuse for them not paying into the other, like the vehicles, the what do you call it, the loose materials, the aggregate, sorry.
And is this the case with all of the companies, or
I think
some
he
of
said
them?
one of them is paying right now, and it's the others that aren't paying. So I told him then he needs to draft that letter, and we're going to send it out immediately, that we expect full payment on everything that is not in question.
Well, and I certainly hope, keep us posted. Certainly, I think we'd be
will.
very interested in seeing the outcome of this. They have their perspective, but anything short of changing the law, we would expect compliance on their part. And I understand they may not want to do it, but I think we collectively recognize that, shipping containers into Guam are helping contribute to our invasive species problem. So
Absolutely.
anything we can do to reduce that would be. And again, these are head of companies. I'm surprised that we're hearing this at this juncture, that they're refusing to pay that fee. But keep us posted if there's something we can do to assist. I certainly don't want to see any progress that has been made. I don't want to see that disappear or fall behind because of that issue. But yes, keep us posted. I look on drug testing, and I ask this of most agencies that have drug testing positions. I'm assuming in your case, would most of them just simply be your conservation officers? Or do you have any other drug designated positions in Department of Agriculture?
No, all of them are drug tested positions.
All of your positions are
Yes.
drug-tested positions? And you have no appropriation for drug testing in your budget?
Actually, that comes out of our operations budget, I believe, under the director's office. For drug testing, do you know which category? It comes out of the director's office budget.
Well, it might be more helpful for us if you put it under the drug testing category. That way it's easy to reference.
Sure.
And how often do you do your random drug testing?
Oh, for random, we haven't done, I'm sorry, no, we haven't, I thought you were talking about upon employment, no. We haven't done random drug testing, or actually we did. No, I'm sorry, I take it back. We haven't done random drug testing, but we have provided information to the employees about how to raise concerns. If you have concerns for any of your coworkers that may require a drug test, but we just haven't had to take it there yet.
Yeah, I mean, I understand. My concern is on the designated positions, because there is an executive order that's been there for a number of years that does require regular drug testing of designated positions. And we're finding as we go through this process, certainly evident last budget year, that there is no consistent drug testing
Okay,
with regards to designated positions. And simply because we do have a drug problem on Guam, I think there's little argument that we have a very bad drug problem on Guam. We just want to make sure that those, particularly those that are in law enforcement, we want to make sure that they're on the up and up. And I think that's
Absolutely.
an expectation our people have. So I think we would like to see some regular, I hate to mandate it by law. That's the alternative, is introducing a bill and mandating it by law that these test designated positions happen, once or twice a year without heads up. Because I'm hearing some departments are giving their people heads up, which gives them an opportunity to sidestep. And that's not the objective.
No.
I look at it, people think, oh, you're just wanting to test people, but I look at it, I'm trying to look at it as a deterrent to know that if I'm going to be drug tested in my respective job, hopefully that'll make me less inclined to get on drugs or misabuse illegal drugs. So if you can go back and revise your budget to indicate exactly how much you're looking at funding for your drug testing for this fiscal year, that would be very helpful.
we can do that.
With your conservation officers, I see your numbers are still relatively low. I mean, back in the day, there was at least up to 2021.
Yes.
And I'm counting, and am I counting this right? You have your 8 that you have listed here.
And we're excited by that 8.
Okay, well, I
It
know it's
used to be
exciting, but
3.
it's relatively low number from
Yeah.
what,
Well, it was
considering the amount
5,
of area that your personnel have to cover on, both on land and in the ocean. And then you indicate here that you have, for 2024, 1 funded from the general fund and 4 LTAs. And I want to clarify with the LTA positions, how are you funding them as LTAs?
ARP funding, so it's a 2-year fund.
Okay. Do you know the length of time an employee can be an LTA employee under the law?
1 year.
Right. So how do you fund them for 2 years? Are you talking the
If
same
there's
individuals?
if there's no certified list, which we haven't had, you can renew the LTA funding. When we did run an open announcement, like I said, and what we're waiting on right now, they started off with 30 applicants and only 2 qualified. So if we pick them up, there's no other certified list.
Can you double check? Because my interpretation of reading the LTA, it was very clear that they were only allowed for 1 year. And they have to qualify. People are under, and I've had department directors as recently as yesterday, are under the impression that they can use the LTA as a training ground.
Oh,
to meet-
no.
I understand, not in your case, but as recent as yesterday, who think they can use this as a training ground to qualify these individuals. And they're not conscious that they're telling us, which is totally improper, that they're intending to qualify them so they can have them apply for classified positions, which was never the intention
does
of
that
limited
one.
term
You can go ahead.
positions. So I think you need to double check, because the last reading that I had in the Fino English is that you're only allowed to occupy an LTA for 1 year. And if it's an emergency position, there's a specific number of days and that's it. There's nothing else that says because of this, and this reason you can extend it. So I mean, I understand the need for it for short term, but it's very clear that whoever applies for LTA has to already be qualified.
Yes.
You can't take someone who's unqualified and just stick them there and use it as an opportunity, because it's a disadvantage also to other people in the community that want to apply for a classified job, and they're already brewing their internal person that they're
No.
wanting to hire. I mean, if it's something you mentioned, an apprentice program, if that's something we can work on legislation that would allow, they don't have the training, but they can come in under the wing of your conservation officers, and maybe they have to get their BOLEA training or whatever, maybe there's a mechanism in the law we can put in place. So there's like, and I think maybe law enforcement, those other, even what we're talking about at DOC, because like in your case, the same thing. We looked at those numbers yesterday from DOA, and there's 1,000 something applying to be a police officer, and only 40 get 1,000 and only 40 get recruited. You're like, you know, it just isn't adding up, and we want to know why is it the deficient? Is it lack of, is it educational training? What is it that is the reason why most of those individuals, for whatever reason at the end of the day, don't qualify, so that maybe when they're doing their outreach, they can try to target? Because to me, if someone's already expressing an interest that they want to do a certain job, that's a plus, especially these jobs that most people, you know, go, well, I don't want to go out in the jungle and all of these other things. But if they express an interest and excitement in wanting to have that type of job, we'd like to know what are the other challenges that they're not meeting in order to qualify. And are those things that we can do an apprentice type of position to help facilitate so that they can get that orientation, that training, and that opportunity to move up. And then it's done in a legitimate way. Nobody's like, you know, bobbing somebody because, hey, you know someone, you got to connect and you got in. And then it's a fair playing ground for everyone. So maybe that's something that we could look at.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Senator Brown. Roy Gamboa, Deputy Director, Department of Agriculture, and I appreciate all the concerns. I think just to start as a conservation officer with the Department of Agriculture, you must have already received your BOLEA training. So that makes it a lot tighter of a group that can come in and apply. Now, when we're talking about interest in the future, in speaking with our chiefs over here, we are looking at ourselves as more like the Department of Natural Resources. And in that being said, we've met with some educational partners here on the island to develop a natural resources law enforcement academy, where it's not necessarily going to require everything in BOLEA, but most of the fundamentals. And then from there, because some of our positions are have to be post-certified, we're looking at a foundational course for natural resources law enforcement, and then it'll branch off into animal control. It'll branch off into ADS for agricultural development services. We also have forester positions. Once we start developing this academy, we're looking at year one, focusing on the local workforce development, and then in year two, potentially offering these programs to our brothers and sisters in the outer islands. So that way we can become a regional training facility for individuals that say, okay, there's 1,000 applying for GPD. You could be doing something very similar with the Department of Agriculture. Our conservation officers are our quasi-border patrol. Yes, we have customs at the port, at the airport, and the Port Authority, but right now as it stands, we have 9 officers, and each are basically assigned to cover 10 miles of shoreline, looking for illegal immigrants, looking for poachers, illegal fishing, MPAs. So not only are they looking at the shoreline, they're also looking inward for those illegal hunting activities. So I've taken all the chiefs to a couple of the different educational partners out here, and we are developing, I think Chief Christine has developed a plan where it'll serve our existing employees to be cross-trained, so we're familiar with what the left hand is doing and how it ties in with the right hand, and we become extensions of each of our divisions. So our conservation officers, although there's 8, 9 of them, their ex-services can be extended from our foresters when they spot illegal hunters. They can be expanded from our DAR officials when they're out there and they're boating and they're doing their research. They can notice illegal fishing. They can notice illegal immigrants coming abroad here onto the island of Guam. So everybody within our agency here is going to be able to receive the basic training of incident report, evidence gathering, some of the basic stuff that BOLEA requires you. But we become a little bit more of a specific specialty trained academy where we can now offer it to individuals that were saying, hey, you know, I think I can only do a police work because I was an infantryman in the military or whatever it may be. But who's going to protect our resources? Who's going to continue to go out there if they don't even know that these jobs are available, there's no interest? That's why our chiefs, every time we get invited to schools for career day or whatever it may be, one division might be invited. We send everyone. We send at least one representative to talk about animal control, someone to talk about forestry. This way we're out in the public a lot more often and we're more visibly seen so people know and understand. I'll admit my guilt as well, and as well the director has said, we didn't know a lot of these rules or these laws existed in the past until we came into the agency. And I've taken it on a personal oath to help protect our island, because if if we're not doing this, then what island do we have left to pass to the next generation? So I just wanted to chime in a little bit about, yes, there are plans laid right now so that we can develop this training facility, this academy. Number one, to train ourselves to get more of the CEs that are required, and then also to potentially open it up to graduating students, possibly even at Guam Community College. It's a little difficult there and at the university because you need maybe 20 students to start a class. With our academy, we can probably start with 5 students, and it'll be an introduction to everything that we do in natural resources law enforcement, natural resources protection, preservation, restoration. Once we start there, then we create that interest. We start to develop the workforce so that we don't have these lags with open continuous positions. We've even considered looking at creating entry-level positions into the forestry aid, forest service technicians. They work as laborers to support our forestry firefighters. Chief explained it to me, when everybody thinks of Guam Fire Department, they wait for the fire to come to them. With our foresters, these are the guys that you see out in California jumping out of the planes with the parachutes and the yellow jackets, and they're going out there. They're the offensive line. They go out there and they attack the fires so they don't burn the hillside. Then it creates erosion, runoff, drowns out our river systems, drowns out our corals, and that just kills food sustainability for our island. So everything from ridge to reef is under our purview to make sure that we protect our island and its future. Right now, and this might apply a little bit more to a different committee, but bona fide fisherman program. And I know I'm going off into a different subject over here, and the director's kicking me on the side, but I just wanted to make sure that we get out there. Bona fide fishermen, just like the bona fide farmers, we've got to protect our resources. So I agree with the director. The budget is not unreasonable. The asks that we're requesting, again, like Senator Joe said, give us 4, we brought in 24, give us 10, we'll bring back 100. So I like that kind of math. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate the synergy. I think there's some very positive things to be accomplished, but I still think you're understaffed with regards to conservation. So I know 2 or 3 years ago we discussed this, Mr. Chair, of putting additional positions, because we don't want to spread our law enforcement here too thin. And then again, anytime there's a need, you know, your conservation officers assist GPD if a certain incident or whatever comes up. I mean, they're just as trained and capable. And then we also just want the opportunity of career advancement, so it's not a dead-end position. I mean, we actually want law enforcement to aspire to work in the conservation officer division. I want to ask, out of your 7 LTAs that are listed, you have 4 that you're looking at here that are your conservation recruits. So who's the other one? Because you have yourself and your deputy. Who's the 7th position?
Okay, actually, so the 4 LTAs have been picked up, but the 7 positions we have that are not necessarily that they were LTA, but they're open recruitment in progress. We have our administrative officer position, an agricultural technician 2 position, forestry aide, forester 2, animal control supervisor, clerk typist 2 under animal health, a PC4 for under our office, and and 1 conservation recruit. So those are 7 positions that we have in open recruitment right now.
Okay.
For some of them, there's an LTA, like in the ag tech position, the forestry aid position, but that we already interviewed and selected for, and there were only 2 interview candidates for that position. Let's see, I think the clerk typist 2 under animal health is an LTA position, and then us, and we also have I think someone under our forestry section that is an LTA position, but we've already submitted the open recruitment for that as well, and that's at DOA.
And I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, because in other departments, I mean, I'm surprised, but the numbers are growing with LTA positions, and I don't want to see it abused. I mean, it's a mechanism provided to assist short term, but it's not something, and I know there's some people that have been LTA for years, and they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to ask the public auditor to audit LTA positions, but I just want to make sure there's no misuse with regards to that. I know it's a separate issue, and I'm hoping soon that the oversight chair your oversight chair will hold a hearing on Senator Pito's bill. I know we discussed that in December before the term ended, and we're not able to get it on the session agenda. I know that the oversight chair has reintroduced and asked me to co-sponsor. I hope we can entertain it soon.
That would be awesome.
Because I'm a little concerned again at the ability. I mean, you guys are doing the enforcement, and then it doesn't go anywhere because the Attorney General, at least in the past, does not prioritize that. Maybe it's also a discussion I would like to have also with our new Attorney General to make sure that if we can get that in place for the smaller violations, they can issue the penalty and the tickets or whatever. But for the more serious ones, I'd actually want to see some real prosecution as a
Yes.
deterrent, because I know your guys go out there, they do the enforcement, and then the cases go nowhere. And that really is a disincentive for everyone. So I look forward to working with you, and keep up the good work. Chelsea, there's a lot of good things. I mean, you're in a very exciting agency that really can make a mark and really make a difference. I know you've got the drive and the interest and the energy in your position. I appreciate that, and your team. You perform a very, very, very valuable contribution. I mean, the work that you do will have more long-lasting impression to the future than a lot of other things the rest of us do on a regular day. So continued success to you, and certainly look forward to working with you. And I'm sure I'll come and talk to you about our marine preserves and see where we're at with that in terms of its growth and enforcement. Maybe we'll plan a day for us to
We
go
love
out in the
that.
water
We
and
can work
see
on
the
the
progress
eco
of where we're at with
permits.
that.
We need to get the eco permits going for the marine preserves.
Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Deputy Director Roy, if you need assistance on the plan, you're trying to establish a different school program. I know, there's 3 of us right here, right, or 4 of us, or probably all of us up here. If you got a plan, we're looking for it, then maybe if we need to introduce legislation to make it move forward and help you with that plan, feel free to reach out, because, you know, we're excited. We're not excited. We're very interested. Excitement would be the wrong word. Interested would be the key word. We're interested and concerned. That sounds like a success story.
You know, thank you, Senator. One of the things that I learned on this most recent trip to the Territorial Climate Infrastructure Workshop was to always start off, we are looking for funding. That was the first line. So yes, you would be the appropriate body to seek funding. So I would be remiss if I didn't start with that line. Definitely.
But it's something that we're interested and we're concerned. And with that, if you already have a draft, maybe.
Yes.
Let us get involved. Let's try to help you, because there's only 3 questions I ever ask any agency: is where you at, where you want to go, and how can we help you. You answer those 3, we're good. We can move.
And I appreciate it, Senators, because like the director said, and I know she went to a real quick overview of the PowerPoint presentation, but one thing that we definitely needed to take a look at is, even as big as Hawaii is, what I learned out there was, if the imports stop coming, their food sustainability will last them 12 days. I don't know if we know what that number is for the island of Guam if imports completely stopped. Right now, Hawaii is looking at 85% of everything into their islands as imported. Guam is probably in the 95% range of everything being imported into the island. So while we're looking at protecting and enforcing, we also want to ensure there's a sustainable future with our food products. We didn't talk about the slaughterhouse that we are continuing to work on. Our ADS, all of our sections here are working very well with our farmers to ensure that should the ships stop coming in for whatever reason, they have the technology, they have the know-how to make sure that we can continue to provide food for the local populace. Now, one of the meetings I was out there for was with the aquaculture, and this has been thrown around for decades. The difference is we now have the partners in Hawaii that are more than willing, ready, and able to share the knowledge that they've learned with fish products and aquatic products that people actually want. And our regional partners, this was a couple months ago, our regional partners have reached out to us to say, hey, look, we've got this aquaculture system going with rabbitfish, with giant clam, with sea grouper. We'd love to collaborate. And the same thing I walked away with Hawaii is they've all been in agreement. Every time there was a conference that was done, they all said, we need to stop working alone as a standalone aquaculture system, and we need to start working as a region, where if our sister island, Kosrae, is very focused and they're very successful at cultivating sea cucumbers for export, that'll be their key focus for aquaculture. Giant clams, groupers, our brothers and sisters in Palau and all the other islands have said, we're good at doing this. And we'll be very quite upfront, Guam is lacking. And there is no shame in us saying, we definitely could take the help, all the help that we can get, help us where we need to be. And I visited 3 different aquaculture facilities, one using traditional Hawaiian methods with the sea ponds. That's not something that's traditional to the island of Guam, but it was very educational. And we will start to look at more grants. Again, this is juggling almost the 80 or 90 grants that we have at, that's basically 1 grant per employee up at agriculture, to look at more. And what we've been told was, if we're going by the route of education, and education to where the Pacific American Foundation, once a week, each student from the elementary school that neighbors their facility, they spend 1 entire day down every week at the fish pond. And it's been 20 years, and some of those elementary students are now working at that same fish pond and figuring out how to produce food back to the island. So programs, education, love it. We'll definitely be meeting again in the future, Senator.
Okay, thank you. Another one, Chelsea, I noticed in one of your slides, animal health numbers, right before I go to my colleagues. Entry permits, 557, export, 264. I think when you inspect somebody bringing in animals, there should be some clause where you can check back with them that, hey, what did you do with it? Did you let it loose where it becomes a stray dog or a stray cat? You brought it in, take it back out with you.
So there is a requirement when you bring in a dog through the entry permit, they have to be microchipped. A while ago, I think Senator Rigel had introduced legislation where they also had to be spayed or neutered.
No, I can understand all that. I'm
That
just
would be
referring
awesome.
to if a sailor, an Army guy, or Marines, or whatever he is or she is, when they bring in their animal, there's got to be a tracking that if that service member is leaving, you take your dog with you. It
So-
doesn't become Guam's problem. You brought it in, you take him with you. And I'm saying this not only for military people. I'm talking about everybody. When they bring their animals in, and you have to do a permit to bring them in, there should be a means to somebody check on them every year that, hey, you still got your dog, we need to see, or you still got your animal, we need to check. Well, we'll be leaving in 6 months. Well, you need to get a permit to take them out. Because it shouldn't be left as a stray. Because on many occasions, I don't know for some of you, but I've seen, gosh, some purebred out there straight, and I'm like, whoa, who left that expensive animal out on the street? But it does exist, and that's only I'm concerned about. Okay, and I'll ask now, we'd like to recognize Senator Blas has joined us this afternoon, and I'll ask, okay, Senator Paris will ask some questions, and we'll move to Senator Kanata.
Mr. Chair, and good afternoon, Director Chelsea, as well as Deputy Director Gamboa, and Ms. Antonina. Thank you for being here and for all the hard work that you put together for this presentation today. And not only that, all the hard work that you've put in for the year and the past couple years. It's great to see somebody who's committed to agriculture, boosting agriculture and the environment in this position. And so we're very grateful for the work that you've done and the leadership that you bring to your agency. So thank you so much, Chelsea.
Thank you, Senator Paris.
So just a couple questions. I was looking at the budget, and I just want clarification. There's red fine print that talks about the miscellaneous appropriations.
Yes, ma'am.
And so just confirm if the amount is going to be dedicated for this fiscal year, because for instance, like animal shelter, 2023 was 142K, and for this year it's 142K. Is that going to continue for this year?
Yes. So the 142K was originally a $150,000 appropriation to gain, and then with COVID and the drop in the tourism attraction fund, and when all of the special fund or special appropriations were reduced, it was brought down to 142. But that is Gain's operational budget that they invoice for quarterly, and that does get appropriated to them for that.
Okay, and so this is not part of the budget that you're requesting currently, is that correct?
It used to be, yes, but I believe it depends on how you guys word it, where it gets excluded as part of our, it's a line item, but it's not part of our general fund budget.
Yeah, so are you expecting this amount? So for all of these, animal shelter, conservation officers, gain, spay, and neuter, do you have confirmation that you're going to get this amount that's not part of the budget request that you have right now?
No, you guys would be our confirmation.
Oh, so we would have to increase the budget then at this point?
You appropriated as separate miscellaneous funds.
Okay, so maybe I need clarification with the
Yes.
appropriations chair.
Generally, it's under miscellaneous funds.
Right, right. So being that, I guess we would have to either put it in miscellaneous.
Yes.
But when that happened, we identified a source of money.
Yes.
And that may not be existing when we come upon budget, because we found money during that process, and that pot of money might have dissipated by now. So I think it's really important to get clarification on the appropriations chair whether that money is there. Otherwise, we would have to increase your budget if you are expecting that money to be there for all of those and very important services.
Yes.
Okay.
For some of these, it would be just completely detrimental if they weren't provided.
Right. So otherwise, you'd be short.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have funding for that. And so, yeah, conservation officer. Here in this particular handout, it says 200,000 for last year, but nothing for this year. So, I mean, we were just talking about how there are 9.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, there were 9 itemized in your budget, which I recall that in one of the hearings or previous budget hearings, ideally you would have 20, right? Correct? At least 20 conservation officers. I mean, not to detract the work that you've done. You know, I see the progress you've made. But I guess if we want to affect change, more likely than not, it has to be reflected in the budget.
That would be outstanding, especially for the reservist program. I think we've been able to demonstrate just the absolute efficacy of that program, where we've been able to respond during off hours to different situations and to more situations than we had in prior years. Mm-hmm. The reservist program has made a substantial contribution to the conservation officer's performance.
Yes, and I could see that. We see that being advertised or in the news articles. So yeah, thank you for that. But again, you know, maybe check with the appropriations chair, because if you want to affect that change, it has to be reflected in the budget and in the number of positions that you've outlined. Currently, there's 9, and so unless you find federal funding to get more, it's not going to be in the upcoming year. So that's just one thing I've noticed.
Thank you for that.
The other question I have is regarding, so you answered a lot of the questions, some of the questions that I had regarding the invasive species fund. You need clarification. I mean, when the change happened with the passage of the law to start charging per container, there was some hope that there would be an increase in invasive species fund, but it looks like it hasn't. I mean, I've seen an increase since the time you've come on board, but it seems to be at least now at status level. Is that correct?
Well, this law, this body passed last term, so it went into effect in January. So we haven't yet had the full opportunity to see the increase. I have no doubt that it will, because in analyzing how the prior law was drafted, I could see the flaw in the formula and the weight, where they tried to determine based on weight to hit that $2 million mark, and it just never hit. But now if we do it by container and then we added on, I believe there's a $25 or $20 per vehicle, and we added aggregate, which was excluded in the prior law, we should hit that $2 million mark. And as I was telling Senator Brown, the challenge just for this year has been that some of the shippers they disagreed with which containers should be charged that fee and which should not. So in conversations with the entomologist, he expressed that they weren't paying, and I said we need to change that immediately, because for whatever parts are not in conflict and that the containers are being grounded on Guam, there needs to be fees remitted, and that needs to be addressed right away. So I think this issue will be resolved either through a conversation, and understanding what the intent of the law was, and then if necessary, we can ask the Attorney General for an opinion. But I mean, just easy reading of the law right there, it says entering Guam, and that's our 3 nautical mile territorial boundary that's entered Guam. I don't think anyone can say that, argue differently.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I'm looking at that part, the biosecurity funding. So you have here about $654,000 from the Guam Invasive Species Inspection Fee Fund. So that would be for the whole fiscal year 24? Is that what you're expecting to receive?
Yes, and that's
Okay.
just covering staff,
Okay,
and that's the existing staff. So it doesn't even provide for, I think, additional positions with the exception of 1 commodity inspector that we're in the process of recruiting.
okay. How much have we received so far? Do you know, as far as this year, since January, do we have the numbers that,
I don't have that number.
because perhaps we
Usually-
can extrapolate, you know, the amount? Because if this is running low, is there a way in the budget, or does a budget say that you get to have access to the additional monies, or do we have to
No, the legislature has to appropriate it.
appropriate it? Okay, so maybe some language in there that says, should it exceed a certain amount,
That would be super
you
helpful.
should get that as
That
well.
would be awesome.
Okay. All right. So this budget that you have, does it incorporate the 22% increase?
Yes, it does.
General pay plan? Okay. And do you have prior obligations?
When we do have prior year obligations, it's generally with Xerox, for the most part.
Okay.
And it's gotten so routine where they're used to sending the Attorney General a memo or whatever, and then they send us, I mean, we're used to the process.
Is this a contract for just Department of Ag or for the whole wide government?
Just for Department of Ag. And each
Okay.
of our sections has their own specific contract as well, so it's done by section.
Okay. Do you think it'd be, have you looked into perhaps consolidating versus just having one division? Or how does that work? Do you get one contract and then divide it up by the divisions? Or do they each go after the contract?
No, it's one funded by, like, as an example, DAR has federal funding, so they fund their own contract. The conservation officers have operation funds, so they fund their own. The director's office funds our own Xerox. The biosecurity section uses the plant inspection fee to fund their contract, so it's difficult to have it all consolidated under one because everyone's paying out of a different source.
Okay, because I'm wondering if there's a way we can, if we consolidate a contract, would it produce decrease expenditures? You know, generally that's the case, right? Bulk. in bulk.
I don't think that, so the challenge that we're also seeing with this contract is that sometimes when the invoices arrive, it's not always clear the number of impressions that were used, or there's different questions that we have, or different sections have with each of their invoices. So if we had it under one contract, it might make it even more difficult to determine the accuracy of the invoices sometimes. As an example, DAR had, I think, several months worth of invoices that were sent to them at one time, but you couldn't calculate just exactly how many impressions were accrued each month. It was just one lump sum amount, so then they refused to pay it until it could be itemized more clearly. And if that was done as one contract for the agency, we wouldn't even be able to determine which section it was from.
Okay, understood. Yeah, I appreciate that response. Okay, as far as lapsed funds, are you expecting to lapse any funds?
Sorry, man. If I'm being frank, we're always broke before the end of the year, so we use our lapse funds before we even get there. I don't exaggerate when I say that we're bare bones. What goes into salary and benefits is a majority of our funding, and then we have just enough to cover for Xerox, our trash, our telephones, and our utilities. And then oftentimes, and Ms. Santos will tell you, she's asking for lapse funds before we hit the fourth quarter, especially with the rise in those costs, like Xerox has gone up, our power and water has gone up. Yeah. So we don't, lapse funds never gets to get there.
I think that just means you have efficient procurement too. Yeah, you're not waiting on procurement, is that correct?
We try our best. We do.
And as far as ethics training, what percentage of your employees have received the ethics training?
I will admit, a very small percentage. I think last year we were able to bill for one person.
Is there a initiative to, I guess, comply with the law because that is mandated?
There is. We've sent it around, and at least for some of our sections, it depends on funding for the training, because I believe it's $80 a person. And we will make more of an effort this year around to try, especially with, well, I guess we'll see how we can build that into some of our federally funded projects.
Okay, so you're looking.
I think it would work with some of them if it's compliance training.
Okay, so that would be federally funded.
Yeah.
So, okay, you're not looking for the general fund at this point to cover that.
For some of us, we would have to, like under the director's office, you'd have to. Animal health, you'd have to. The ones that have federally funded projects, we can probably build some or pull some out of that.
Okay. The other thing is the bound tree snake eradication at Dono. I noticed that wasn't on your list. Is that something that's included in federal funding, or is that just?
It is. It's part of one of the 63 projects for DAR.
And how much is coming in for that?
Do you have that one, Doc?
Senator Perez, Roy Gamboa, you asked how much we've collected on the invasive species fund to date. I just got a message here. We've collected just under 284,000 to date.
How much?
284,000
284. Okay.
for this fiscal year, for
Do you know
fiscal year
which one's
22.
Dono?
Sorry, for fiscal year 22.
It's
Yes,
this one, I think, right?
22, 23.
Okay. So you're running roughly about that amount. You might be getting more, a little bit more.
I think once we resolve the issue with some of the shippers that haven't been paying the portion that's not in question, we should be able to get a little bit more.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. So yeah, if you extrapolate, you'll be getting more than what is listed here.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay. Let's see what else. So maybe a question for, oh, sorry, you have a response?
Yes. So for the BTS control on Dono, for this year, we've added 283,000. To date, we've been awarded 568,000. And then for the volunteer component of that program, it's 75,000. So there's a lot of money going into that. That's already almost $1 million.
So it's been increased from previous
For
years?
this year, yes.
Okay.
We've added 283.
Okay. How's that project coming along?
It's moving. I mean, we subawarded to USDA and USGS to do transects on the island and do snake removal. And then the 75 provides for the training and support of volunteers that want to go out there to do snake removal. I haven't read a progress report recently about the work on the island, but we're hopeful. We shall see.
Okay. Well, thank you. I guess one more question. This is for the forestry division. So I just am kind of curious about your program, was it landscape?
Scale restoration.
Yeah, landscape scale restoration. Is there funding coming in for that?
You have to come up. Yeah.
Before you answer,
Christine Camacho Farron. Oh, yes.
were you sworn in?
No, Senator.
Okay. If you're not sworn in, you don't get to speak. Okay,
That's
so
okay.
stand by.
For landscape
And for
scale restoration.
any other agency out there listening, if any of your folks show up and they might speak, get them to stand up next time when we do the swearing in. Sergeant Arms, you're going to be able to swear in the young lady. And no, we're going to swear you in so you can speak. Because she said one more question. That'll be our last, then we can move on. Because we have two other senators that want to ask questions.
There's 5 parts to it.
No, one question, and then we'll be done. We move on. Sergeant Arms, please.
Please raise your right hand. Under penalty of perjury, do you affirm that all and any information you provide today, whether it be verbally, electronically, and in writing, be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. Mr. Chair, she's under oath. You may proceed.
Thank you. Senator Perez, you feel free to ask her the question.
Yeah, can you expound on the landscape scale restoration? What is your outlook for the coming year? And who can apply for that as far as, is it just Magaʹhågan or are there other initiatives available?
So, good afternoon, Christine Camacho Farron, Forestry Division Chief, Guam Department of Ag. The Landscape Scale Restoration Grant was a 3-year grant that started in 2018. So we had to extend this grant because of the delays with COVID, and we had some challenges with SHPO with regard to planting reforestation projects. So the project site is 100 acres within the Manel watershed, specifically Osgado portion. We have 2 plantations within that watershed, but the LSR, Landscape Scale Restoration, funds Osgado specifically. So this will be our final year on the site for the funded reforestation work. But forestry, once we're on the landscape, we stay on the landscape and we manage that resource. So considerable fire monies, state, USDA, state, and private forestry funding is invested in that for the long haul. And this is why we say administrative authority over properties. It gives us the opportunity to keep putting federal funded projects on the site, because our staff, we're fortunate they're locally funded, but the work is very dependent on these federal dollars. So fire, the Cooperative Fire Protection Program puts considerable money out there across the island, and we have no local support for the wildland fire program. And we in fact also provide resources to the Guam Fire Department through 2 other forestry fire grants, which gives them their PPEs for wildland fire. This is the first time in 2 years. It was 2 separate grants. I funded for South for the first one, North for the second one, and we're just kind of stuck in procurement right now for the PPEs to be arriving. And again, this was just one set of uniforms for each member for both ends of the island. So back to the LSR, the funding was for 100 acres. We were averaging about 12,000+ trees on site each year. And so that meant that for every tree planting we held, we had at least a target for, if not 2,500 to 4,000 trees at a given time when we were planting. We fell behind when COVID hit, so we're still working to work on that number. But we are invested for the long haul. So the LSR might expire or will end, but the work won't. And it's an annual competitive grant. So this wasn't something we were just given. We were awarded LSR twice, 3, biochar and this landscape scale restoration one. So it comes through our office, we announce it to the public, and it's a competitive proposal, and it comes back to us for submission. So, yeah. Okay. And if I can add, we have our America the Beautiful Challenge funding, our REPI Challenge funding, our Joint Chiefs Restoration Partnership funding, and our UCF, our Urban and Community Forestry, IRA, what is IRA? Thank you. Our very specific UCF IRA funding. These are all brand new pots for Guam. And so we're very proud to bring that in for the Department of Ag for Guam. So when we talk about capacity challenges, if I don't get the administrative support I need from my division, I am managing, administering, and still responding to all wildfire operations for my staff. So Director pleaded the positions, but I need an admin assistant at least, or I might have to go on medical leave. That's
She's
no
not even
I
exaggerating.
I get it, but it's a lot. For all of you who've known what it's like to work with, the first time bringing in our first 1.9 million, 1.7 million, it's like, for every new grant, it was just, okay, don't capture that.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Farron, for that, update.
May I also add that all of this funding is identified, or we have identified projects that we're going to be working on. All of that is part of the big overall forest system plan that we're working on resubmitting to the legislature. We developed the forest system plan in alignment with the Forest Legacy Act, but right now because of the way the language was worded in the Forest Legacy Act that says that this plan will be developed in alignment with the AAA process, we're now having to go through the AAA process, which was designed for rules and regulations, but we're having to apply it to this process of this plan. So it's proving a little bit challenging because it's a plan. It doesn't meet all the qualifications for rules and regulations, so it's difficult to answer some of the questions, but we will be submitting that to the legislature. And with your help in approving that plan, we can then have more targeted specific projects to work on with all of these millions of dollars in actually developing recreational, educational, medicinal, and cultural sites for Guam.
Okay, so Masi for all those responses. And we definitely look to Department of Ag as a transformational agency, and I think all the hard work that you're doing today in all areas, from food security to biosecurity to animal health, and all areas. We do appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. So Masi, and we look to you to partnering for sure to make Guam a healthy and better place. Masi.
Thank you, Senator Paris. And I'd like to echo that. I actually look forward to other agencies upcoming. I'm really hoping they can tell us that for every dollar we give them, they're bringing in $3 or $4 in federal grants. Senator Gananta, do you have any questions for the panel?
A few. I know you guys are prepared. So congratulations, Mr. Gamboa. Good to see you on board. Christine, you do a phenomenal job. All of you guys at Agriculture, beyond compare, I guess. We're really shocked with all the money you're collecting and how you guys are continuing to operate with the scarce budgets you guys have been offered, right, or given. So when I was running for office, I had this brainiac idea. All of our water catchments, or the ponding basins, are all overgrown grossly. What if we put goats inside the ponding basin?
We've actually talked about that. We've even talked about, well, the only thing with goats is that they eat indiscriminately. So you can put them in the ponding basins, but you better watch them because they'll eat whatever's in the ponding basin, and then they'll go to the neighbor's yard and eat whatever's there. And so you'll have, and they multiply. Like right now, goats are considered an invasive species in Hawaii.
I think we really need goats to multiply because a lot of our ponding basins have gross amounts of grass growing out of it. And Sakati is not a native species, it's an invasive species.
What I would suggest more than goats, we've talked about this, is heat-tolerant sheep. So sheep will eat the grass, they won't eat other plants. And there's heat-tolerant sheep that you can bring in, like from Texas, that can survive in Guam's weather, and then that's a meat source.
But what's the breeding capacity of those sheep?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'd rather have crazy breeding of goats, and then we can start farming them out to the schools, because the schools have also had a challenge, right? With a lot of our schools being overgrown. I think if we have fencing around the schools, I think that could be a way for us to augment the shortage of funding or lack of funding for the school maintenance on ground maintenance, right? So I just think that's a great idea. I've been thinking about it, trying to figure out how to appropriate an operation for you guys to take care of that. And it'll gradually breed, what do you call it? What were you teaching? Permaculture. It'll be a permacultural, sustainable operation, right? The goats will be happy. The goats will breed. Then we can have grass maintained and all the grounds upkept, right? And then our ponding basins, we can actually see that there's water inside it, not just Sakati and Pago Bay tree. So yeah. With that being said, thank you for that information. Records management. I'm a big proponent of a lot of things being digitized. I think we live in the 21st century, so we need to start moving forward with our lives and get rid of all this paper. Paper has also been a hoarding mess where we're continuously finding that either it's infested with vermin or we cannot afford to continuously maintain its warehouse or storage facility. So, with that being said, I think archives are important. The documents are very important, but I think if we've digitized them and we have some kind of redundancy plan, we should destroy them and get rid of it, sanitize and move forward with life. So with that being said, I think another possible operation for you guys is, do you guys do composting?
Yes,
okay. We based on DOA's response, I think the other day, we have a situation with a lot of documents needing to be destroyed. I think we can destroy the documents or sanitize them by putting them into the compost. right? Instead of paying Do It or a contractor out there thousands of dollars, just shift it into a compost pile.
Thank you, Senator Cannata. We do accept paper from other government agencies, including GSA. One of the difficult challenges that we have is some of these agencies now use industrial type shredders where they'll shred CDs. Some of the papers that they shred have staples. If it's regular 8.5 by 11 paper, that's perfectly fine. Those will compost. However, there are some times where they'll shred shiny paper. They have coated paper, and those won't biodegrade whatsoever. So when you talk about the digitization project, I completely understand where you're going. I spent many years at the Xerox Corporation learning and understanding everything about digitization. Now, what needs to be changed is what your body can do, where right now we have federal guidelines on storing documents, right? What we can do for at least local documents or whatever it may be is enact local laws that says, okay, once you have a triplicate digital copy, local, so in-house, local, and then all in the cloud, then you can change those requirements so that we're not holding documents for 7 years or 5 years. Once you've established that triplicate in storage, you have a 12-month holding period, and then you get rid of the document. That will resolve a whole lot of issues, because as time continues to go by, we cut more trees, and we cut more trees faster than Christine and her team can plant. So, yes, digitization is the way to go. However, it is going to take a policy from this board, this body, to indicate what the storage requirements would be, and then establishing the entire parameters, what type of file, the naming convention for all of it. And I suggest enacting sooner than later, because judiciary might have a way of naming. The executive branch might have a way of naming and saving different files. What I recommend is taking a look at Congress or the House of Representatives, follow suit what they're doing, so that all GovGuam agencies, once you've stored your documents, it's now prepared to go to the Guam archives, and it'll be easier to research things online if everybody has a similar naming convention, if they all have similar storage types, PDF-A, so that it's readable, text searchable, and also encrypted. And if every agency has this developed from the beginning of their digitization process, they won't have to go back and have to rename or start from scratch. So this body, I think, recommending here would be the one that needs to start that process of identifying what's the retention period once you create a digital copy. If I save this right now and it's a federal government, I might have to hold it for 7 years. If I digitize it, save it on my local hard drive at the agency, and then save one at the Guam archives, and then also archives uploads it to the cloud, now I've got 3 copies that I can pull from any of those websites. I don't have to hold this for 7 years. So that would be something I think this body can definitely take a look at. I've spent some time taking a look into it. There are subject matter experts on that, and I definitely agree. Getting rid of the paper will make it so that if agencies are going to recycle and give us shredded paper, it's got to be your standard paper, no CDs, no plastic, no coated paper, and definitely we introduce it right there on the grounds at DOAG. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. Another one is agricultural property. There's a lot of agricultural property that's been lack of, I guess, quote unquote, use. We know Mr. Ernie Wustig uses his property. I guess you're not the land managing gurus, but you guys are the agriculture experts. Although we do have funding for a slaughterhouse, I don't know of any local farmers that have enough cattle or anything to push in that endeavor. Do we know of anyone like anticipating to go in that direction or that route?
Yes, we actually have roughly 90 ranchers that are raising livestock right now, and those range anywhere from chickens to pigs, to some with cattle. I believe there are other ranchers out there, or livestock ranchers, that are looking at different species of cattle to start raising on Guam. Predominantly, we anticipate that the utilization of a slaughterhouse will be for those raising chickens and pigs, and then the hunters with Banatu, but not really raising them, so that'll be sporadic use.
Of course. So I know Naval Magazine has a nuisance of carabao and deer and ungulate, right? So I understand that there has been a sizable amount, I believe, from REPI to kind of like take care of the invasive species, whatever way possible. Unfortunately, some of that meat just goes to waste, but I think if we can find a way to navigate or try to situate them out into those agricultural properties that are lack of being used, right? I think then we'd be able to operate a slaughterhouse more efficiently.
Yes, so I've talked to the former base commander, the naval base commander, Jeff Grimes, before he retired, and he expressed that a lot of the carabao that are on Naval Mag are wild. The bulls are very aggressive, and those are the ones that they usually euthanize. The larger, more aggressive bulls. So they've been managing them on their own. There was at one point a program with ADS, but it requires, the onus is on ADS to, number one, identify who's going to pick up the meat. Number two, they need to come with a trailer. Number three, they need some sort of tranquilizer to be able to tranquilize the animal before they get it on. And at that time, I believe they needed the agreement or participation of the territorial veterinarian. So, I mean, we can look at working that project again with Naval Mag. It's just a matter of, well, now we have a more receptive, engaged territorial veterinarian. So I think we could do something with finding people to pick up the carabao, but I don't know that there's enough to substantiate or like to engage with a slaughterhouse repeatedly. But it's definitely, it would be useful for the slaughterhouse, or to have a slaughterhouse there if you were picking those animals up for meat.
Okay. How about agricultural water meters? Do you guys deal with that in any way?
Yes, we do.
Okay. How's that going with you guys?
We have several farmers that take advantage of that program. They need to first be recognized as bona fide farmers with us. Then they go to GWA and they apply for the ag water rate. We provide them with a letter verifying that they are bona fide farmers. And then they have to provide or bear the cost themselves for installing that ag water meter. And depending on if you're tied into the system already or not, it could be the difference between $3,000 to $30,000. If not more, depending on how far away the meter is from where you need it to be.
Awesome. Okay. One more question. Regarding REPI, right? The REPI Challenge Award for North, is South going to be addressed soon? The REPI South?
I'm not familiar with that.
The REPI project up north?
Oh, the REPI project?
Yeah, yes.
Yes.
How are we doing with those funds? I only bring it up because I'm the oversight for military buildup. So I think the REPI project is a very good project.
It's outstanding.
Yeah.
We're looking, we have the REPI terrestrial right now. We've made it clear that we want to apply for REPI aquatic as well. Just for aquatic use. But this is the Tagwan project. So Christine has weekly meetings with the sub-awardee for that. And there's two components of that.
The two components are the
Triple T.
Tano Tasid Zantodu, the organization that's been hired or contracted for, or awarded, for the projects for biological assessments. So that'll be including like the SHPO conversations, finding the boundaries, and then doing the overall, like what's on the site. What's on the site that we need to know about so that we can better manage it when we're on the site. Then the second component is the White Buffalo, the organization that was awarded for a project for ungulate removal and exclusion. We're pretty excited by this, and so that's REPI. But we also have REPI Challenge, and the REPI Challenge is the competition that we submitted for and were awarded, and this gives us a retrofitted new nursery for our what we call and what people know as our SETI Bay nursery across the street from our compound. That's the nursery that 80,000, thousands of trees are propagated in there on an annual basis. And so we're going to retrofit the whole warehouse to include training facility, lab work, nursery operations, storage. And this is a much needed project. So that gives us that. Plus we do some more savanna work because we recognize that habitat is more than just forests and ravines. We also have to protect our savanna species as well. So we're excited by the America the Beautiful, what gives us capacity and REPI, which gives us new infrastructure or retrofitted infrastructure.
Awesome. Okay. Just wanted to give some spotlight to that program. Yeah, it's an awesome project. So we gotta, figure out how to give you guys more money through that program. Yeah, there's plenty of money from DOD.
We'll take that money. We'll take that.
Huh? We need to find more conservation land, so don't worry, that's coming soon. And we'll
That's your forest system plan.
Yes.
Back to that.
Yeah.
So if I may, we are moving forward with the Federal Forest Legacy Program. This is a highlight. We initiated community meetings this past month. This wasn't a requirement for this effort, but we are fighting for federal forest legacy, which is a whole other animal. It takes years to implement, but it gives us another management tool to support private landowners. So just know that that's coming.
I know we got a little bit controversy of that again, but anyways, it's free money. Just donate. I mean, you're getting paid for them to rent your land. There's a good program, but I wanted to highlight that you guys have you guys oversee GAIN. Is that my understanding? So,
Yes.
okay.
The long and
So
short of it.
I think we've outgrown our facility up in the north, right? We've continuously had issues with the facility not being overly not big. Period. Big. It's already like DOC. It's not enough space for the dogs.
Actually, with their new president, Lauren Cabrera, they've reduced the wait so that they've eliminated the wait list. So at one point, you would have to wait 3 to 6 months to even surrender your animal. Now, all you do is call GAIN and make arrangements, and you can surrender it that day. So some of the statistics, if you get our handout from the PowerPoint, we're euthanizing, or they are, I don't want to say we are, because I don't have to endure that.
You don't want PETA to come
trauma.
after you.
No, I'm fine with that, but I don't have to deal with euthanizing the dogs and cats that some of them do, sometimes more than 10 a day. But they're euthanizing at a rate of about 85 to 90% of the animals that come through there. So according to GAIN, the issue is not the amount of space that they have, because as they're processing, we've together have become more efficient at processing animals through there, so that there's no more wait list. People can come in and turn in their animals right away. We submitted draft legislation to Senator Parkinson's office so that we eliminate that loophole of if you feed a dog for 3 days, it's yours. Now, if you feed a dog once, it's yours, and we can hold you accountable for feeding strays and not maintaining that animal. Because the deputy said it the best. We don't have a dog problem on Guam. We have a people problem. People are out there feeding the strays and helping that population to grow. They're making them less vulnerable to getting trapped because they're no longer hungry. So it becomes more difficult to catch. They're increasing their pack sizes. They're becoming more aggressive. We've had more animal bite reports than we've ever encountered in the last 5 years, this past year. So it's not so much that GAIN has capacity issues. We're going through there quickly now. It's more so just addressing the, people having responsible pet ownership and addressing the stray animal issues in the community.
Okay, thank you. And then there was an issue about one vehicle. What's the one vehicle for?
We don't have, so animal control, we finally have 6 effective animal control officers. They're highly productive. They don't have any vehicles. We've been borrowing vehicles from our other divisions, and those are the ones that they're not using. And at this point, they're now down to 1 vehicle that they're borrowing from forestry. And as of last week, that vehicle had been down for about 2 weeks. So for 2 weeks, we had no vehicle for animal control. We're trying to work with GAIN to use some of that spay-neuter money to purchase vehicles. One person has been challenging on that storefront, so we're trying to deal with that. They were questioning whether that was here, you can tell us. Seeing the picture of our animal control officers in their SNP t-shirts at a SNP clinic volunteering, would you say that animal control officers are part of the SNP operation?
Me? No, or just, it is what it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah, animal control
If they
officers.
volunteer, they volunteer. You don't. it's automatic waiver or whatever they're doing on their volunteer
No,
time.
so we're trying to say that our animal control officers contribute to the SNP program so that SNP funds that the legislature appropriated can also be used to purchase vehicles for the animal control officers.
Okay, I see what you mean. Okay. Okay, well we're gonna. Well, I was also thinking about, you know, you guys have been on the news a lot for busting people under the influence, whatever they're under the influence of. But I think if you arrest the individual, that vehicle is left, so you could confiscate the vehicle.
That's a challenge in that the vehicle has to sit and hold until the AG adjudicates the case. And otherwise, they offer them mitigation, and they dismiss the case. And if it's mitigation, that means we have to offer mitigation, which is up to $500, and then we return the vehicle.
Oh no, that's a waste. No, we should just take the car. I think it costs more than $500. What's the regulations for catching a turtle?
Federal offense.
Oh, I guess you have to follow
So
federal
then it has to be
regulations then.
federally prosecuted.
Okay. Okay, that's all. Keep up the good work. Thank you guys for all your hard work. Well, you're already here to let us know what we can do, so we're going to do our best. You have my commitment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Grant. I think, Chelsea, if you can, get a hold of Revenue and Tax, find out how ABC processes when they go and they confiscate alcohol. Because when they go and confiscate alcohol, it's just a matter of, it's not long, and if it deals with vehicles, you hold on to it. You don't put it in an impounding lot. You can park it at your building, take care of it, and pretty much when it comes to alcohol, the court just says destroy or bid, or what you just ask the court, you want to take it in your possession, put it in your inventory. That's something to consider, okay? Senator Blas, do you have any questions for the panel, sir, or comments?
Yes, I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you,
It was
Senator.
just a few questions, and primarily it's, do you have do you still owe anything for anybody for last year or years prior?
I'm sorry, Senator.
Do you owe anybody for anything for last year?
prior
or
year
years prior?
obligations?
Yes. I wanted to use that language as opposed to prior year obligations.
Sorry. Usually, if we do, it's with Xerox.
Okay. So that's the same thing, it's just Xerox.
Yeah.
So you're up to date with your merit bonuses and your increments?
Yes.
Okay. With regard to, I know there's a discussion that you had earlier, and you had some individuals, some employees funded by ARP.
Yes.
How many total employees do you
Four.
have? Four. And what positions are they in?
Conservation recruits.
Okay. What is the plan for them?
We
Because you got them as recruits, okay?
Yes. So right now we opened up, well, we picked up one, and then we opened up a conservation recruit classified position, and we've encouraged them to compete for that position.
Okay. Do you have vacant positions for them?
One.
One. And so how are you going to fit the three into that one position?
Survival of the fittest.
Survival of the fit. Chelsea, that's what I like about you, okay?
They can't all be the best.
Yeah, well, how are you tracking with regard to your special funds?
We're pretty on point with them. Our special funds, with the exception of the invasive species, don't collect more than 100,000. The highest is the plant protection, around, it goes between 94 to 96,000. Then what is that other one? There's the plant protection, the rabies prevention. Rabies prevention is usually around 40 to 45,000. That's it. There's plant protection, rabies, and the plant nursery, but that's a revolving fund. Right now, that has $1,400 in it.
Which one has 1,400?
Plant nursery revolving fund.
Okay.
We really need to increase the prices for our plants.
That's great. So if I was to go up to agriculture right now, What can I expect to find in the nursery?
You expect to find your mind blown.
Why?
We have amazing stuff. We have amazing things for sale at the nursery. Our nursery section has really passionate people who are really creative and have studied plants from all over the world and all over Asia. South America, we have everything from, we're growing cacao. We have a mother tree for cacao, vanilla, coffee. We found what we believe to be the oldest coffee tree on Guam with beans that are huge. We have different varieties of spinach. There's longevity spinach, Tongan spinach, different kinds of eggplant. One of them that was developed by our agriculture development chief, John Borja, called the ideal eggplant, which is suitable for Guam's climate, and it can, what do you call it, it still grows seeds so you can propagate more for yourself. There's macadamia trees, there's grafted avocado trees taken from some of the best avocados on island. We have a black pepper project where we're trying to turn black pepper into an economy for Guam. It's a high value commodity crop for farmers. We have lots of citrus, herbs, and medicinal plants. Our nursery guy, Chris, found African basil that's heat tolerant. Different types of varieties of tomatoes and peppers. There's one that I like to call the chupacabra, like the Mexican goat vampire, but it's actually, I think it's like Japote cabra. It's a South American fruit. He grows the miracle berry, where if you bite it, you sort of just chew on it in the side of your mouth, and then you squeeze lemon or calamansi into your mouth. It tastes like lemonade.
Okay.
So there's lots of amazing things at our nursery. We sell out all the time.
So you know what you do? When you get back, have staff get the clip, okay, the YouTube clip, okay, make it into a 45-second commercial, okay, speed it up a little bit. And the reason why is because, I think that you know, Roy, you brought up the thing here about the concern with regards to food security, okay? And at one point in time, what we had anticipated, or what we only have about 2 weeks worth of food, okay, or less, actually, all right, and that's not a whole lot, okay, when you really start to think about it. But this is an opportunity to be able to, for lack of a better term, grow the industry and grow grow the enthusiasm towards doing something like this. Okay. Because I, for one, I'd like to be able to grow my own food. Okay. Right now I've got I think eggplant, pepper, and I know it's eggplant because I planted it myself, okay, and cucumber, okay, and tomatoes. But, I'm going to go up to your shop tomorrow and go look at other stuff that you should have up there.
Everybody loves it when they come. You end up getting caught up there.
And
Spend a lot
that's
of
great
time.
because, I'm looking at ways to be able to increase your budget because we got to find, she's no good if she's in the hospital bed, okay? So we got to find her administrative assistant, all right, for this. And I think that this is one of the ways that we can be able to do this, okay? And I want to be able to encourage her. Well, you had something to say? You want to say something?
It's interesting to note that one of the things that I took away from my recent trip was before there were ships that brought containers in, our island people lived on what the land provided.
Yeah.
And so we've got to turn back that clock to the point where if we can get to close to 50% of our food being raised, grown here on the island, we'll be in a very good place. While many people, on a personal level, while many people struggled during COVID, worried about food, I saw lunch and dinner running around in my backyard. And with my neighbor's acre with all the fruits and veggies, it was a constant. Every few days, I would put a dozen eggs by my fence, and he would return with papaya or bananas and things like that. And if we start to do that and train and teach our people that we can go back to the bartering system and grow our own fruits, it'll be great.
Yeah.
And one of the things that our staff has learned from my recent trip was including nature-based solutions into every grant and every project that we do. So if we see erosion on the shore, the traditional answer is put blocks, put up a seawall. And what a nature-based solution looks like is putting back native species of plants, water plants that would help protect the shoreline. And in going down that route, we have a better chance of bringing in, again, like you said, Senator, give me 10, I will bring back $100 million. By incorporating these things into our grants, it helps us protect for the future.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you're right, because, I'm doing a lot of research and stuff, and I tell you, your industry, your department, okay, I have seen so many grant opportunities that, that exist. Not just for food security, but, for again, protection of land and sea, okay? And so I understand give me 10, I'll give you back on it, because we're going to hold you to that, Roy, and we're going to, okay, on that. I was looking through this, and one of the things I saw that you was very popular, that you do a lot, okay, is derbies. But thing is, I don't see how you fund it. Where is it here?
So under our federal grants with our Division of Aquatic and Wildlife Resources, we have the Hunters Education Program and as well as the Game Management Program. So we use those funding opportunities to hold the, we call them the Field to Fork or the Venado Derby. And the purpose of those is to fulfill what's called R3. That's retain, bring back, reintroduce, and recruit new hunters, retain existing hunters, and what's the other retain, recruit, reentry, the reentry of former hunters. And we've seen success with that, especially when we launched Guam's first Venado derbies, because we always had pig derbies, but no one held a Venado. As soon as we held the Venado derbies, we had hunters who had not hunted for years come back into the fold. We had hunters bringing in their kids. And with the Venado, or with the Babui Derby, we tie it to that, the R3, but then we also incorporate the food aspect of it because we don't want to just see them go to waste. So some of the data we shared is that with the last Babui Derby we had, breaking down the meat, 57% of the pig is consumable. And if an average person eats half a pound of meat, we had over 4,000 meals provided with the 45 pigs that were shot in that Babui Derby.
Okay, and so like I said, I saw the picture here of one of your derbies, but then I was looking through here and I was like, okay, how are you funding this? Okay.
So under DAR, there are 63 federal grant projects, and I think it's about $11 million. So and this is a breakdown of those, but.
Oh, I don't got a copy of that.
Yeah,
collection.
we can make a copy of this. This is
Okay.
our internal
Yeah, sharing is
document.
caring,
Yeah.
Shelton.
Okay. But there's.
See, if I had that in my hand, Chelsea, I wouldn't have asked the question.
Yes.
But Senators, it's a great segue to make sure that the invitation is sent out to each of your offices for May 26th. That is our May harvest. And what we're doing is we're linking our hunters with our farmers because we know we have a huge ungulate problem, right? The pigs are going into farmland and destroying crops. So by bringing together the two forces of hunters being able to go and hunt on the farmer's land, we'll be there and ready with depredation permits so that the hunter becomes familiar with the farmer and vice versa. Now, tying this back into the slaughterhouse, as it stands in the past, when a hunter donates the pig to the mayor gives the entire pig to one family, and it's up to them to dress and distribute. Should we have the pig and the deer presented to the slaughterhouse, now the pig can be quartered or cut in eighths, and if you're a single or two-person household, what are you going to do with a 50-pound pig? Okay, I can live with 10, 15 pounds. So instead of feeding 25 families that take 25 pigs home, now you're splitting and feeding 100, 150 families with some meat. And while this is federally funded, we have been reaching out to our local partners that provide hunting equipment and so on and so forth to bring back and reintroduce more hunters. We're looking at requesting some changes in the hunting laws where if you go hunting, both individuals have to have a hunting license. It's difficult to train the next generation when a 13-year-old son or nephew, whatever, has a difficult time getting a hunting license. We're looking at providing training, firearms training, weapons training, safety training, so that they can go as an assistant to the hunter to help carry the catch out. It's difficult for us in our 50s and 60s to shoot the deer and, hey, who's going to help me carry this deer or carry this pig out? I would call my nephew. So even a small little change to saying the hunt is over once the animal is no longer alive and is no longer being chased, now your nephew can come or your niece can come and help take and extract the animal from the jungle or wherever it may be. So tying it back into the slaughterhouse, feed more people by being able to butcher it and quarter it on the same day with the derby.
Okay. You know, with the many grants that you've got working, and I see here that you've got a lot of grants. But one of the things that I want to is do you have any employees that are being funded by one grant by doing work outside of the grant program?
No.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because, you know, we don't want to get into that position where we got an employee who's, you know, funded to go, you know, catch pigs and instead he's catching dogs. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
wish we had that flexibility, but we don't.
Okay.
We do have a lot of DAR staff that are funded under their own specific project, but if we have them working on another project, then they take their pay from that other project.
Okay, I just wanted, you know, again, it's the grant management thing that
Yes,
I'm concerned
absolutely.
about, okay? Then lastly, just a little bit of a comment, you know, and I think that the chairman here can appreciate this. You know, when you get questioned by cops, sometimes cops ask you questions just to basically so that you can elicit answers and, you know, come up and then you get, a lot of times when we ask the questions, we already know the answers. We're just trying to, okay, verify it, okay? Okay, so just the last comment, okay? Next time when I call for you guys, somebody return my phone call, okay?
Yes, absolutely. When did you call?
Check
Which
the log.
section?
Check the log, okay?
Okay.
Thanks a lot, okay?
Thank you, Senator Blas. I only have one issue that concerns me when you talk about agriculture, planting. Chamorro Trust issues a lot of lease out there with 5, 10, 20 acres. I'm concerned is that as we're trying to promote agriculture, that these leasees have these acreage. I'm gonna hope that they are registered as farmers. And I don't know what role the Department of Agriculture gets involved on making sure they are planting what they're supposed to plant.
So this
You
is
see where I'm coming from? It's not you authorize 6, no, you got 20 acres?
There's no cannabis license issued as of yet.
Okay, see, Roy knows where I'm coming from. But what I'm trying to get at is that you have some folks out there that's got 5, 10, 20 acres. And it's supposed to be agriculture. And I'm just wondering if they're providing whatever they grew or whatever they're selling that is being accounted for in the market. Because like you mentioned, you guys have a nursery. I'd like to see you guys have an outlet somewhere up north or down south. So your products are also there. So they're not just going to Manila. So, you know, after a while, you know, you are not going to have enough space for everybody to show up. As of today, probably everybody's going to look at it. Bulatinanum, I'm going up there. Next thing you know, it'll be like, we didn't expect everybody to show up. But if you have different locations, folks who know, they'll go here for this, go there for that, and then next thing you know, you'd be good to go. But I'm just concerned about Chamorro Land Trust property that's supposed to be promoting agriculture. And I don't know are you guys involved with them?
Yes, we actually, I was going to say we had a very timely question. Thank you, Senator. We had a meeting with them, with Chamorro Land Trust about 2 weeks ago. We discussed issues and concerns that we wanted to address with them. Some of that being that we had designed curriculum to help train new landowners into being farmers. We worked with UOG
I'm
on
not
developing
looking
that.
at new folks. We're talking about land that's been leased
And to help
for
those
10,
that
15
have,
years now. They
Yes.
got 20, 10 acres.
But for some of those guys, those are new farmers because they haven't been compliant. So we wanted to help bring existing Chamorro Land Trust lessees into compliance.
Okay, the reason why I'm very concerned, because after 7 years, they start paying for property tax. And if you got 10 acres, 20 acres, that's a lot of money you're paying. And if you're not producing anything, you must have a lot of money somewhere.
And if you were a registered or bona fide farmer, you would have an exemption for that.
Yeah. But why get an exemption if you're not really producing for the market?
Oh, they would have to be producing in order to get that exemption or to get registered or certified as a bona fide farmer.
So in other words, you guys are involved and checking, making sure they are producing.
Yes.
You get to see who they're selling to.
Yes.
You get to see that in fact, there is in fact, at least out of 20 acres, there's 10 acres. Because
Yes.
really, after a while, I would expect that if you got 20 acres, you better be using every bit of those acres because there are folks hoping to get a lease to plant in 1 acre and visit
yeah.
your deputy director and says, hey, Azudazu Fansa, I can plant. You know, and that's what a lot of people want. They need help. Then great.
And thank you, Senator. And I think where you're kind of leading with this is people securing the agricultural land and then using it for other purposes. With that being said, the collaboration with the Chamorro Land Trust Commission leadership, we have established great lines of communication. And when it comes to the enforcement, that's where they may take the lead. We will do what we need to do to work with the farmers and ensure that there is compliance. Anything above that, that would more than likely fall in the lap of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission to ensure that they're following the guidelines as an agricultural tenant of the land in itself. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, because I'm hoping Chamorro Land Trust folks are listening to what I'm saying. Because I'll ask them that question when we do deal with them in the budget. And if they're not checking on their lands, then maybe we need to reconsider what they're doing. Because a lot of us here would be saying, who have signed up for lease, and we're not getting any lease. People that signed up since '95. And there are folks up there, and I remember at one point they had commented that, well, we got to follow the Attorney General's. We'll get it done. But I'm concerned about the Department of Agriculture getting involved because you guys are doing what you need to do. And if everything's successful, we don't have to look at the 2 weeks of what we need if the product don't come in. We can look at it that maybe it will be 1 month, and maybe we'll be at 50%. And we'll be moving on. I mean, I don't believe we'll ever get to 100%. Guam's just too small. But we can sure as hell make a dent in how we can survive.
And that being said, when we're looking at food sustainability, perhaps that is a 1 semester or 1 year class within the Department of Education where we teach ourselves how to raise our own food. So perhaps then it also opens the market to teaching the students, number one, food sustainability at home, things that maybe have not been able to be passed down from one generation to the next. Just a simple curriculum that says this is, if you ask a kid right now, 12 years old, where does food come from? 9 times out of 10, he's going to say from Payless or from Kmart or whatever. Maybe he doesn't know.
Or from my dad when he brings it home, right?
Exactly. He doesn't know that it comes from the farmers. He doesn't know that it comes from the ocean. And so, perhaps within the education system, we got to teach him young.
Yes. Okay, and I think we pretty much wrapped it up, unless you have anything else to say. Other than that,
No, Senator.
there's no one else to testify for or against the Department of Agriculture's budget. I want to thank everyone for attending this hearing and for providing feedback and suggestion. The Department of Agriculture's budget hearing is now adjourned. It is now 4:15. And with that, thank you very much. Please
Thank
be
you so
safe
much.
and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Senator.
Awesome.
And
Thank
next
you.
time, just use Roy's bike if you needed a vehicle. His motorcycle, it's available.